This show is part of OnePlace, a daily network of focused briefings across the stories people follow most.
Welcome to the program. We are looking at a massive day of protests and political shifts across the country, as the administration faces intense scrutiny over immigration, war, and federal spending.
Protesters across America rally against President Trump's policies.
Minnesota demonstrators use symbolic butterflies to protest ICE.
A House Democrat calls for reparations for traumatized families.
Powerful images emerge from global No Kings protest events.
Trump admits legal reasons for avoiding the word war.
Bruce Springsteen headlines a massive demonstration in St. Paul.
Trump's golf expenses surpass $100 million taxpayer dollars.
Immigrant women face health crises amid federal enforcement fears.
Rising gas prices and war weigh down approval ratings.
Rifts over Iran emerge among the faithful at CPAC.
Starting with the protests. The No Kings movement has returned with a vengeance, marking its third major iteration with massive rallies in nearly every major American city. From the steps of the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C., to the crowded streets of Times Square, protesters are voicing their outrage over the administration's policies. Organizers are specifically targeting the ongoing war in Iran, aggressive federal immigration enforcement, and the skyrocketing cost of living. They argue that the current leadership is behaving more like a monarchy than a democracy, using the phrase wannabe kings to describe the president and his closest billionaire allies.
The White House has been quick to dismiss these gatherings, with a spokesperson labeling them as nothing more than Trump derangement therapy sessions. Despite that dismissal, the scale was undeniable, with police in New York having to shut down Midtown Manhattan to accommodate over 100,000 people. A particularly somber note was struck in Minnesota, where the deaths of two American citizens, Renee Nicole Good and Alex Preddy, at the hands of federal agents, have become a rallying cry. High-profile figures like Bruce Springsteen even joined the stage to perform songs specifically written about the tragic events in Minneapolis.
Focusing on Minnesota now, the rally in Minnesota was particularly poignant as the state became the national flagship for the No Kings movement this weekend. Thousands of residents gathered in St. Paul, displaying a level of unity that was palpable during a powerful moment of silence. The crowd, estimated between 100 and 200,000 people, utilized symbolic imagery to express their dissent. Whistles were used to signal a call for help, while monarch butterflies were worn and carried to represent the fundamental right to migrate across borders. It felt like a communal catharsis for a population still reeling from recent federal immigration surges.
Personal stories from the crowd highlighted the deep-seated fears families are currently facing. One mother, Amy Spare, recounted how her 5-year-old daughter asked if laws would be changed back to a time when people with brown skin couldn't even go to the grocery store safely. This fear of regression is driving many Minnesotans to the streets, even those who typically prefer to stay out of the national spotlight. The presence of images of Renee Good and Alex Preddy served as a constant reminder of the lethal stakes involved in the current enforcement tactics, making the protest feel both urgent and deeply personal.
Moving to the Capitol. In Washington, Representative Pramila Jayapal is taking a hard line against the administration's immigration tactics, calling for federal reparations for families traumatized by ICE. During a congressional hearing titled Kidnapped and Disappeared, Jayapal argued that the federal government must be held accountable for the emotional and physical damage inflicted on children. She emphasized the need for offensive legal actions and prosecutions against those responsible for these enforcement actions. The Congresswoman highlighted the staggering statistic that over 3,800 children were arrested in a 10-month period, with many being held in facilities described as having nightmarish conditions, including infants and toddlers.
Jayapal is also targeting the financial side of the immigration system, calling for the total abolition of for-profit detention centers. She argues that private corporations are profiteering from the suffering of immigrant families and then funneling those profits back into the administration that enables them. By calling to outlaw private prisons for immigrants, she is attempting to break the cycle of what she describes as corporate-sponsored human rights violations. While her proposals face significant opposition from the White House and Republican leaders, her testimony has brought the specific plight of detained children like 5-year-old Liam Ramos into the national spotlight.
Looking at the visuals. The visual impact of these No Kings rallies cannot be overstated. As powerful photos from across the country and the world flood social media and news outlets, These images capture a diverse coalition of protesters standing against what they describe as a second-term agenda defined by tyranny. The official No Kings website lists several grievances that were reflected in the signs and banners, including the presence of masked secret police in communities and the impact of an illegal, catastrophic war. These photos serve as a historical record of the widespread discontent regarding the perceived attacks on freedom of speech and civil rights.
Despite the gravity of the protesters' messages, the administration continues to mock the movement. Abigail Jackson, a White House spokesperson, reiterated the claim that these are merely therapy sessions for the disgruntled. However, the sheer volume of participants and the global nature of the events suggest a much broader base of opposition than the administration is willing to acknowledge. The photos show everything from massive marches in major metropolitan hubs to smaller, determined gatherings in rural towns. Each image tells a story of families pushed to the brink by rising costs and a political climate they find increasingly unrecognizable and dangerous.
Now to the president. President Trump recently made a candid admission regarding the terminology used for the conflict in Iran. During a keynote address in Miami, he explained that there are specific legal reasons why he prefers the term military operation over the word war. He noted that as a military operation, he does not believe he needs congressional approval, whereas a formal war would require him to go through the legislative branch. This admission highlights the ongoing tension between the executive and legislative branches over war powers. Interestingly, he actually slipped up during the speech and used the word war before quickly correcting himself.
The president also used the platform to criticize international allies who have been hesitant to provide assistance. He specifically named leaders from France, Germany, and the UK, expressing disappointment in their lack of support for securing the Strait of Hormuz. He even claimed that he didn't try too hard to get NATO's help because he wanted to prove a point about American independence. Meanwhile, he offered warm thanks to Saudi Arabia for their involvement in the conflict. This comes as the human cost continues to rise, with at least 13 U.S. service members and over 1,400 Iranians reported killed in the ongoing strikes.
Back to the music. The No Kings rally in St. Paul gained significant momentum with Bruce Springsteen headlining the event. Springsteen performed his new song, Streets of Minneapolis, which was written as a direct response to the fatal shootings of Renee Good and Alex Preddy. He spoke passionately to the crowd, telling them that their commitment to resisting the surge of ICE agents proves that the spirit of America is still alive. He described the current federal actions as a reactionary nightmare and an invasion of American cities. His presence helped draw a massive crowd that stood shoulder to shoulder on the Capitol lawn in a show of defiance.
The scale of these protests is reaching record numbers, with organizers estimating that over 9 million people participated in Saturday's events. There were over 3,100 registered events across all 50 states, ranging from deep blue cities to small towns in red states like Idaho. In Kansas, protesters even used humor to make their point, with some dressing as a frog king or a baby version of the president. While Republican officials continue to dismiss these as hate America rallies funded by leftist networks, the geographic diversity of the participants suggests a grassroots movement that is becoming increasingly difficult for the political establishment to ignore.
Shifting to the costs. A new analysis has revealed that President Trump's golf habit has now cost taxpayers over $100 million since he returned to office. This figure represents travel and security expenses for his 56 visits to his own golf courses in just over a year. At this rate, he is on track to spend $300 million by the end of his second term. Critics are pointing out the optics of these expenses during a time when many Americans are struggling with spiking gas prices and a general affordability crisis. Watchdog groups argue that these trips are essentially promotional appearances for his own properties.
The security costs are particularly high at Mar-a-Lago, where the Coast Guard must patrol both the Atlantic Ocean and the Intracoastal Waterway whenever the president is present. Each trip to the Palm Beach Club costs roughly $3.4 million. So far, he has spent more than a quarter of his days in office on a golf course he owns. This pace is significantly faster than his first term, where it took 2 full years to reach the $100 million mark. While the White House defends these trips as necessary for the president's work-life balance, the financial burden on the public remains a major point of contention.
Regarding maternal health care, the crackdown by ICE is having a chilling effect on maternal health care for immigrant women. Doulas in the San Francisco Bay Area report that many of their clients are now terrified to go to the hospital, even when they are in active labor. One doula, Veronica Fragoso, shared a story of a patient who had to be begged to seek medical help because she feared encountering immigration agents. This fear is not unfounded, as many families have already seen loved ones deported. The result is a growing number of women who are foregoing essential prenatal appointments and postpartum care to avoid any contact with official systems.
Medical providers across the country are seeing similar disruptions, with patients declining to enroll their newborns in Medicaid or share any medical information. Some women are even choosing to travel to less populated cities for care, hoping that a smaller ICE presence will make them safer. This environment is forcing women to make an impossible choice between their personal freedom and their physical health. The trauma of constant surveillance is leading to shorter hospital stays and a general avoidance of the healthcare system, which experts warn could lead to long-term negative health outcomes for both mothers and their children in these vulnerable communities.
Analyzing the politics. The combination of the war in Iran and high gas prices is taking a significant toll on President Trump's approval ratings. A recent poll shows that 61% of respondents actively disapprove of the war, a sharp increase from the early days of the conflict. Unlike the initial support seen during the Iraq War, the public's reaction to the current military action has been skeptical from the start. The shifting justifications for the strikes, ranging from nuclear programs to regime change, have contributed to a sense of unease. Furthermore, the closure of the Strait of Hormuz has directly impacted energy costs, hitting farmers and drivers particularly hard.
These economic and foreign policy pressures have pushed the president's job approval rating down to just 36%, the lowest of his second term. Even traditionally friendly outlets like Fox News are reporting similar downward trends, which has reportedly led to the president calling in to complain about the coverage. There is a widespread concern among the American public that this war lacks a clear endpoint or objective. As thousands of U.S. troops converge on the region, the anxiety over prolonged and costly conflict continues to grow, reflecting a significant shift in the political landscape compared to just a few months ago.
Finally, at CPAC, the Conservative Political Action Conference in Dallas revealed some unexpected rifts within the Republican base, particularly regarding the war in Iran. While the event remains a stronghold for the MAGA movement, the president himself was notably absent for the first time in a decade. This absence comes at a tense time, exactly 1 month after the U.S. began strikes against Iran. While many attendees still express total confidence in the president's leadership, others feel a sense of betrayal. Some veterans at the conference pointed out that the president had originally promised no new wars, and they are now questioning the focus on foreign conflicts.
The divide was even visible on the main stage, where former Congressman Matt Gaetz warned that a ground invasion of Iran would make the country poorer and less safe. He argued that such a move would only lead to higher prices and potentially create more terrorists than it kills. While a majority of Republicans still approve of the war, that support is significantly lower among younger conservatives and independents. These groups are increasingly concerned about the domestic economy and wonder why resources are being funneled into a foreign war instead of helping Americans at home. This internal debate suggests that the party's unity is being tested.
That wraps up our briefing for today. Thank you for joining us for this daily update. Be sure to follow the show for tomorrow's briefing on the latest developing stories.